Hi, welcome to Audiobook Academy. This is a self-paced audiobook. There's no need to keep an eye on things. Just pay attention. Thank you for taking the time to listen. This is a book summary of The Fifth Agreement. A Practical Guide to Self-Mastery. By Don Miguel Ruiz. What is critical thinking, and how does it differ from other forms of reasoning? Self-help cult classic The Four Agreements is the inspiration for the Fifth Agreement. An examination of self-mastery and a search for truth are featured in this book. As a result of adhering to this agreement, we will be better informed. Many of you will recall the Four Agreements. In order to empower ourselves and others, the first step is to speak with clarity and precision. We shouldn't demean others, but we should also lift ourselves up so that we can grow and succeed. Secondly, we must learn not to take things personally, no matter how bad they may be. If others use their words to disparage, denigrate, or spread rumors about us, this reflects poorly on our character, not theirs. Thirdly, you should never make assumptions about other people. When we don't know the answer to a question, we should be curious enough to seek out the answer. However difficult the situation may be, we must always strive to do our best. When it comes to developing a strong sense of purpose and self-awareness, the Fifth Agreement offers yet another piece of Toltec wisdom that can help us get there. They offer us a wealth of spiritual wisdom and ancient teachings, as well as practical advice on how to put it all into action. To do this is to unlock the key to long-term happiness. The Fifth Agreement will be explained in a few paragraphs here. In this class, we'll learn about the difference between truth, reality, and fantasy, as well as the importance of listening. Skepticism and critical thinking will also be examined, as well as how we've come to accept the world as it is. We live in a world that is constantly changing. What does freedom and independence mean when we talk about them? In other words, what are your worldviews? Earth is a spherical planet with oceans and continents. The solar system includes the Earth as one of its planets. Those who doubted these facts in the past have already been proven wrong by history. We make claims, skeptics weigh in, and eventually we accept the hypothesis as either true or false. A few things are simply the truth. However, we live in a reality that is largely constructed rather than based on fact. The Truman Show has a famous line, "We accept the reality of the world with which we are presented," which we often quote here at Briefer. As a result of this, we find ourselves immersed in a world full of ideas that don't necessarily reflect reality. The message of this book is to embrace skepticism, learn to listen to other points of view, and develop critical thinking skills. Perception is a potent tool in the hands of a master. The Fifth Agreement's core principle is the power of perception. In other words, how does one determine what is right and wrong? The only way you can be certain that something is wrong is to have proof. What if your sense of right and wrong is rooted in a religious conviction? Then why do you follow a particular religion, exactly? Because of your religious upbringing, perhaps? Perhaps religion was introduced to you later in life. Possibly you've abandoned your faith? Religious beliefs are an integral part of the reality you've constructed for yourself. And that's when things get tricky. There is a common belief among most religions that theirs is the correct one. Who's right here? What's the real story here? A definitive answer can't be found in science when it comes to religion and faith. What this means is that we must develop critical thinking skills and question the religious narratives we are sold. Describe how you view religion. That's why the whole point of the Fifth Agreement is to foster a healthy sense of wonder and skepticism toward our current reality. Our responsibility is to learn about other people's views and to listen even if our own beliefs don't align with theirs. It's important to remember that absolute truth does exist. Science is the only source of absolute truth. There are some things that are undeniably true, and we have no business disputing them. Our interpretations of science and our perceptions of the world are a form of art. In other words, truth is not the same as perception. It's our job to distinguish between what's real and what's imagined, between what's scientific and what's artistic. There is a wide range in how people perceive the world. When we're in a bad mood or if we're interpreting the world around us in a different way, we see things in a different light. Perception and seeing the big picture are the focus of the Fifth Agreement. What does big picture thinking or thinking outside the box mean, and how do we put it into practice? I like to think of practicing the Fifth Agreement as a crossword puzzle. To see the big picture, you need to put all the puzzle pieces together. In the end, it's all about figuring out how to make sense of the big picture by figuring out how to decode symbols. The influence of images and phrases. Because our bodies and minds are at odds, we often feel anxious and confused. And, of course, as we get older, life becomes increasingly complicated. When we're young, it's so simple to figure out what we like and don't like. For example, we talk about our favorite pizza toppings, movies, and even colors. As we get older, the world becomes more complicated, and our early years are based on simple dichotomies. Our easy-to-understand world starts to crumble. We engage in a form of intellectual iconoclasm. This is due to the fact that we construct our worlds through the use of symbols. Symbols are all around us, in the words we speak and the things we see. Symbols were a central theme in Baudrillard's seminal work Simulacra and Simulation, which he discussed in great detail. We build a shared existence through our perceptions of reality and symbols, according to the central thesis. In addition, each culture is taught to comprehend this reality and the meanings of the symbols. Symbols can take on a life of their own, becoming more important than the things they represent. Symbols can also be copied. A fake symbol, is it less authentic than the real thing? How do you know if something is genuine or not? When confronted with doubts about our beliefs and the world around us, these are the kinds of questions we need to ask ourselves. One of the 5 agreements is that we must examine our own worldviews and the ways in which they influence our daily lives. For some reason, our brains accept the symbols around us as truth. Since when has the concept of shared existence become so commonplace? By using language, one of the most common ways to give meaning to the symbols and objects in our environment, we first begin to use words. A toddler will point to an item and say the word that she has been taught to describe it. The correct word will earn her accolades. When we learn to speak, we begin to create our own language. We begin to develop a sense of morality and ethics as soon as we have a basic understanding of language. Right and wrong, good and bad, reward and punishment, these are some of the concepts we are taught in the beginning. In a nutshell, we gain knowledge about human behavior. We look at people's behavior, and we buy into the idea that good behavior is something that we believe in and agree with. Rules are effective because they are widely accepted. Parenting and teaching promote the belief that good behavior is rewarded, and consequences are often viewed as unwelcome. Our actions have consequences, we're told. It is up to us to set these standards, to abide by them, and to support the system as a whole. Paying attention to symbols that tell us about life and the world is a critical part of learning. We all remember seeing a picture of a heart as children. A picture of a heart, it turns out, isn't that simple. Based on the context in which the question is asked, the answer can be interpreted in a variety of ways. The heart is the organ that pumps blood throughout our bodies to keep us alive. Our interpretation of the world is reflected in the symbols and words that we use to describe it. What makes something beautiful? What does it mean to be ugly? These things are the result of the application of preconceived notions and expectations. But who makes the final decision? Who determines what is beautiful and what is ugly? A closer examination of these issues is warranted. Truth and happiness have influence. On a scale of 1 to 10, how satisfied are you with life? What would make you feel fulfilled and happy? Most of us believe that more symbols, more objects, and more wealth would make us happier. The truth is that we often make our own misery by trying to find happiness in the wrong places. For happiness and freedom to exist, it is necessary to believe that we are all connected by a shared imagination, according to Sapiens. How do you define happiness? Happiness is culturally, socially, politically, and economically determined. The people we spend time with, our hormones and chemicals, and the conflicts we face on a daily basis all play a role in how happy we feel. When we ask ourselves why we're unhappy, we may be doing so because we have unrealistic expectations of what happiness should look like. Why do people have such high standards? It is suggested in the 5th agreement that we seek our own truth and identity, as well as determine what is most important to us. Understanding that we are the architects of our own reality and the expectations we hold for ourselves is the first step in this process. Beautifulness, success, achievement, intelligence, and so on are all constructs of our own making. However, this does not rule out the existence of reality. No one can question the truth. Certain things and symbols have a reality of their own. Self-mastery, on the other hand, focuses on how we perceive these things, and this is where it comes into play. Using self-mastery to overcome self-doubt. Awareness, transformation, and faith are the 3 things we need to master to achieve self-mastery. The first step is to recognize and accept universal truths. Although some things are true, this does not imply that we take the world for granted. We must be able to tell the difference between what is real and what is made up. We've come to understand that this is a matter of how we perceive and interpret the world around us. However, the meanings of symbols can be changed. There are many ways in which the way in which we perceive the world around us can be altered. It's been said that not everything that shines is gold. It doesn't matter if something looks beautiful, it doesn't necessarily mean it is. Because of our proclivity for overemphasizing symbols, they often wield considerable influence over us. It is a form of rebellion for iconoclasts to destroy images and symbols. It is their belief that the symbols, often religious, have become more powerful than the actual meanings, so they destroy them. A new symbolic order is created, which again demonstrates the tenuous position symbols hold in our society. There is buy-in when using symbols. It loses its significance as soon as no one buys into it. That is why you should always use doubt to your advantage. Be skeptical and critical when new symbols are introduced. Nothing is necessarily gold just because it shines brightly. It's critical that we make a deal with ourselves to look for the truth. Listening is a necessity in this situation. It's important to make an effort to hear what others have to say, even if they don't share our worldview. While listening, it is possible to decipher the symbols and worldviews that the speaker is trying to convey to us. A closer look at this will lead us to the truth of things. The only way to sort out the chaos is to be the kind of skeptics who are good at listening. Rather than immediately dismissing other people's views, we should seek to find the truth when we hear them. Being able to master ourselves begins with the realization that the only way to find out the truth is to listen to the opinions of others. In the end, if you're looking for a book that's relevant now more than ever, look no further than this one. It's about as relevant as ever. In an increasingly complex world where the ground beneath us is constantly shifting, critical thinking must be taught and taken seriously as a skill to be developed. Learning to challenge our preconceived notions of reality is an essential life skill. The symbols and language we use to represent ourselves and the world must be scrutinized. We also need to pay attention. We must pay attention to our thoughts and feelings, as well as those of those around us. Finally, we need to question, interrogate and listen rather than simply accept the reality of the world we are confronted with. Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Please don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. See you in next audiobook.